And we're on live.
Yay, yay, the little light is red.
Yay.
Let's see if we're showing up here.
I know that Diane Port was trying to figure out how to join us
Last week?
this week
Oh, this week.
because she asked, and
Oh,
how does she get in touch with that? So hopefully it's the same way that you get in touch with church. So if you're doing that, you can do this.
well,
Maybe.
maybe it's not showing up yet in our feed, so.
Ah.
Well, you did choose Facebook, right? We're not just the card?
I did Facebook and the card.
Okay. Just checking.
Is it not showing?
It's not yet, no, but it's a
Talk
couple.
amongst yourselves.
Talk amongst yourselves.
It says hi from Deb and Keith, so I guess
Okay.
they're getting it.
All right, somebody's on there. Maybe it's my Facebook.
Are you hearing
And
everybody
there's-
okay, Deb and Keith?
And there is the bells.
There for whom the bell
All right,
tolls.
let's try.
I feel like our table might need a little
Well, yeah,
assistance there.
I'm not, I
Since the
tried it.
humidity is 22% in this room, that might be why that's
Yeah.
dried out.
Well, that could be why the things are falling on Tricia during the town hall meeting.
Yeah,
last
I
week,
come
too.
in and I wipe the pulpit down.
Oh, yep,
I hear nothing.
nothing is heard. We can hear nothing. Oh, there I am. All right, so mine.
I've heard that stuff's very valuable, though.
It is, especially if you breathe it in.
You can make bowls with it. According to,
Can
No.
make bowls with it.
yeah, according to Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's where I
As
get all
long
my
as it's not the white,
information.
the white
That's
bat.
where I
All
get
my
my-
life lessons come from there.
That's, yeah, all of my life lessons.
Chicago.
Chicago. You're out. All right, so we've got 6 people on. So what announcements do we have? I hear the bells tolling, so.
So we have an annual meeting this Sunday following worship. We will go live at 10:15 or thereabouts, depending on how long I talk
On our
on the Zoom.
On the Zoom, not live on Facebook,
Yep, on the Zoom.
So members have that information already.
Yes, members do have that information, and we need you to be prepared because there will be somewhat of a roll call so that we can make sure that we're capturing when we have households that are tuned in that have 2 or 3 or 4 or 20 people there as members. I'm aiming for the stars.
That's pretty unrealistic.
People have been busy
but
during
That's-
quarantine.
That's right.
They haven't officially welcomed all of those 20 members in one house.
So we will be doing that. I think Sheila and Patty will be working to do that. And we've put out all of the information that you need for the annual meeting electronically. We've given out it in hand, and we've actually even hand-delivered packets to folks' houses. So when you check in with the meeting, we'd ask that you please read the materials because most of it's pretty straightforward, and we'll tell you everything that we're up to and how we want to move forward. That way we won't have to be here forever and ever and a day on Sunday.
We are, okay, so we were having some conversation in the comments about can we hear or can we not hear, but Keith said that he can hear okay and Candy can't, so maybe log out and come back in. You probably can't hear me suggest that, though. Can anybody else having difficulty hearing us before we keep moving forward? Let us know. We'll banter amongst ourselves
Yeah,
here for a second.
So that's the big announcement for this week, and then obviously Lent is right around the corner.
But you skipped Super Bowl Sunday,
I did skip Super Bowl Sunday, which is February 7th.
which is February 7th.
So we're asking for a donation of up to or over 100 cans of soup.
Over. We're going to go over.
And FEC has joined in the fight, and they're trying to triple our goal.
Yeah, I feel like we need to like a little bit of,
A little,
if they're going to try to get 300 cans, we should just kind of up it, and then the food bank will be like, so
Yay.
excited. I hope.
yeah. So we're going to do that on the 7th, which is actually the Super Bowl. So bring your cans. There'll be a donation box.
There'll be one, if you're coming to in-person worship, there'll be a box as you come in to drop off, probably near the time chest. If you are worshiping virtually but still want to participate, there will be a collection bin on the front steps of the church all day on the 7th. So come by anytime that's convenient for you, and I would say until dark, and then we'll bring those in and get them ready to be
How
counted.
about this Sunday at the annual meeting? If people are going to be in person, can they bring it then?
Oh, yeah, I
Sure.
say sure. Sure. FEC will be collecting this whole coming week.
Yep.
So, if we want to get a head start, let's go for it. I say nice friendly competition. That's what the Super Bowl's all about.
Bring it on.
Bring it on.
So
I don't even know who's in the Super Bowl, to be honest.
let's see what
Anybody?
it's
Tune
Anybody?
in.
Tampa,
2 weeks.
Tampa and Kansas, right?
Kansas City.
Kansas City.
Okay, they can't hear me. I'm talking directly into my mic. Let me know if you can hear me. If not, I'll turn my volume up. Russ, can you
Yes,
hear Russ?
I'm here.
I am here also.
He's always here.
Sometimes she wishes I wasn't.
That's not true. Okay.
So what are we doing today, Belinda?
We are doing the social statement of the ELCA, which by association, our social statement for caring for creation.
Cool.
Cool. That's
That's it?
the intro you get. You can find the full caring for creation social statement on our website. There's a link on the resources page, or you can just Google it, as we all do, and you can find a copy of it, download it. It's 12 pages long, and we're going to try to go through it in an orderly manner.
And I think one of the things that we have talked about together is that we're not going to sit here and offer our own opinion or whatever. We're going to present to you what the social statement says. And then the conversations will grow out of those as far as where we go with them. But I think we're trying to really keep our personal thoughts out of it, although there is that connection, but we don't want to skew people towards a particular way of thinking. We want to hear from you too about
Right.
how this goes, and
Yeah.
and that'll lead forth to all the other social statements that we're going to investigate.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is more informational, so you know where the synod stands at this point.
Where the church stands, what drives some of the programs and in the national church, and what the national church's stance is. Some of the things that we'll cover, at least my take on it when we get there, is something I do not feel empowered to do as myself, or even our small congregation, when they're talking about supporting legislation and that sort of thing. We can do that on a small scale, but it's hard for us to do that really on the national scale, and that is what the ELCA is doing. Some of the initiatives that they support are based on this.
But for us, it's the same as everywhere else. You start small. You start in your church,
Yeah.
and then you branch out into your community, and then with the community involvement, that say moves to your county, then to your state, and then
Oh, yeah.
And we have that's why we have.
That's how we change
Yeah.
the world, people.
That's right.
So this was written in 1993, but Russ found that it was renewed.
Yeah, it looks like
Sometime.
they did a renewal in August of 2016. So, assuming they looked at it, made sure everything was still okay, and then, gave it a stamp. Check.
Check. All right. So, who wants to go first?
You do.
I do? Okay. Well, I found they also, the ELCA has all kinds of fun stuff on their website if you look. So I found a discussion guide. So they just kind of summed up the first section, but I don't know if you wanted to talk about the prologue first. Did you guys have anything for the prologue, that first page?
I kind of think the second paragraph is pretty important because that sort of states the overall view.
Yeah, and I can read that out. We of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America are deeply concerned about the environment, locally and globally, as members of this church and members of society. Even as we join the political, economic, and scientific discussion, we know care for the earth to be a profoundly spiritual matter. So I mean, that God created the earth. God created everything. And that's what we are called in the world to be stewards of. You know, not to dominate, not to, you know, take advantage of, not to just trash. We are here to care for it, because if we don't, then there won't be sustainability in food and water and whatever else it is that, you know, we get out of creation. I mean, we get from creation, we get everything.
Yeah. And I think that's a good lead into the first section, if there's nothing else in that prologue. Because it explores, I would think when I first hear of social statements and you start reading it, I think that it's going to tell me what we do in our position. And it really opens more with the spirituality. I was impressed with that.
Yeah, I think, you know, and I've I've said it many times, that that's really where I find my connection. You know, I find my connection out of these four walls. I find my connection
In nature.
in nature, really. And I'm kind of that guy that, you know, I pay attention to, like, if I'm hiking on a path or I'm fishing or whatever, to what may be out of place or what's different. And often, you know, I mean, not often, whenever I'm out there and I see trash laying around or see something that's been, you know, whatever, I pick it up. And I think, you know, even if we have one person that just, if you are out wherever and you, even in your neighborhood, because it's your neighborhood, it's your area, it's God's creation.
And here, not in the Chesapeake Bay region, it's going to end up in
In the bay.
in our bay. So do you want me to read the summary, you think, of the statement that they give us in the Bible study here?
Sure.
Sure, okay. All right, the social statement articulates the church's vision of creation, including a unique role of humanity in creation. Throughout this section, relationship, interdependence, and connection of human community to the rest of God's creation is emphasized. Human beings are to be loving caretakers of all God called good, and within the covenant that God makes with every living thing, God continues to be active in creation today. God's profound involvement with the world is made known to us through incarnation. In Christ, the Word is made flesh with saving significance for an entire creation that longs for fulfillment. The Word still comes to us in the waters of baptism and in, with, and under the bread and wine, fruits of the earth, and work of human hands. God consistently meets us where we live through earthly matter. So that's kind of summary of the first section. But what stood out for you guys in that?
One of the things that I kind of took out of this is the part where, you know, God commands us to have dominion over the earth and subdue it, but that doesn't give us license to dominate and exploit. And also it goes into that we have kinship with all the other things on the earth because we're all made from the same source. So you have to think of it, you know, if you're at the top of the food chain, that doesn't mean that nothing else matters and you can do whatever you want, you know? Because once it's gone, you'll be king of nothing.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Russ. I think that's very important for us to really acknowledge that, you know, the dominion piece doesn't mean dominate. You know, it means to care for, it means to look after, to steward and perpetuate the goodness of God's creation. And if, like you said, we dominate everything, if we, continually stamp on something or deplete it to the point where it's not available, then it's not available.
Yeah, extinction of species because of destruction of habitat is something, it's hard to explain what a creature is when there's no examples of that creature anymore,
Right.
We don't understand dinosaurs as we could because, there aren't any anymore.
Well,
And we're doing that to,
And I watched something on the news last night that was, testimonies from 2 women who survived the concentration camp.
Holocaust. Mhm.
Right. And that's a powerful witness because unless you hear that from someone in person,
You're
it's-
detached from it.
that's right, you're detached from it, and there's no connection. So we need to have that connection with our environment so that we aren't detached from it, so that we are faithful to it, and we do take care of it, and so that it's there for, generations to come to enjoy and also utilize to sustain life further on.
Mhm.
Yeah, because even if you're someone who likes to hunt, if you hunt something out of existence, then the thing that you like to do doesn't exist anymore.
Well, I mean, you look at, the ivory trade and that kind of just killing for the sake of killing because there's some ivory or whatever. What does that do for you? I mean, other than put dollars in your pocket, and there's only so many dollars that you can have in your pocket when there's no white rhino to look at ever again in your life.
Yeah.
It's a greed thing to me. I
Well,
feel like it's a greed
greed.
thing.
They get into that later on in
Yeah,
this
the
Mhm.
sin part.
this part where I hadn't thought of economics being associated with environment in the way where you may have places where they hunt for ivory because that's the only way to make any money because there's no jobs or there's
Right.
no other ways to make money. And
Or in the States here with the pipeline that just was shut down, the thousands of jobs that are lost there. And while you can say, well, we can create other jobs over here, that doesn't help the person in that community, in that
Sure.
town, trying to make their mortgage on their house. So it's this weird balance of nature and humanity living together.
Right,
They get into
exactly.
that further, but I liked the part that said God's gift of responsibility for the earth. I just liked that phrasing, God's gift of responsibility, instead of, have dominion. It's really any leader can't abuse their power to the point where you then no longer have any.
And that's where we as a church or we as a person are called to be in our communities when we see that, like you mentioned, Russ, 3 Mile Island or Chernobyl or Love Canal, we have a duty to stand up and say, this is not right. This is not what makes us whole in the world. This is not us looking out for our resources. And we do at some point have to stand up, and part of that, I know that I'm not the best recycler in the world, but there's ways that we can make that happen.
It's all right, I fish stuff out of the trash, so it's okay.
I recycle.
Or out of the recycling bin. You gotta know what goes in the blue bin,
Yeah,
but,
that's why I have Belinda.
well, okay, that's my purpose.
That's your
So-
purpose in life.
Anything else in that first section of how we need to be stewards
well,
and the biblical?
right, the one line where they talk about
They want you to speak
responsibility.
louder.
Oh, sorry. I'll eat the mic. That responsibility should reflect God's way of ruling as a shepherd king who takes the form of a servant, where, you're not just in charge, you're all actually part of the group as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're a participant.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're serving. That's really what we're called to do. We're called to fall in line and be a servant of the world, and be a servant to our neighbor, and work with those folks to come to the common good.
Yeah. Keith said that personal responsibility is important, but so is corporate responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they'll touch on that a little bit more, because as you live your life, your personal choices then affect how you interact with the world. And which corporations, it could be just which corporations you're supporting, making sure they have a solid environmental policy before purchasing their product, or accepting something that's shipped to you, or whatever it is. Or you're actually involved in the corporation and can help change the
Make
way
that
things
change.
happen.
Yeah, sure. Right. And one of the statements here, it says, we are to love the earth as God loves us. And we know that God's love is boundless, so we are called to be boundless in our love to creation, to everything that is good in this world that God has blessed us with. We are called to steward that and shepherd others in that stewardship.
It also brings up in that following paragraph God's wisdom in creation, which brings God's truth and goodness. And wisdom is God's way of governing creation. And I hadn't really thought about wisdom being part of it just brings in one more layer of spirituality to a social statement, I
Sure.
think.
And it kind of led into the last sentence there, where science and technology help us to understand and gain wisdom in order to be, that gardener tilling the soil or tilling the creation around us to make it so that it is sustainable and it is useful and it is, cared for.
Right. We're not shunning, this statement doesn't shun technology and science.
No, it does not.
It wants us to be, it wants us to use them for the good of God's creation.
Right.
Well, and like we talked about last week, they want you to get as much information from as many sources as possible before you make a decision on something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Section 2. Yeah? Are we
Yeah.
good? Ready? I know. I'm so proud of us. So section 2 is called the urgency, sin and captivity, which right off I was like, oh, yikes.
This is the
not
stick
this
before the carrot.
I was not expecting us to bring it down like that. Our sin and captivity lie at the root of the current crisis. I was like, wow, that is a slap of truth right there.
Well, and that's the thing. That's, if nature is disrupted, that means our lives are disrupted. And that means that we're not being faithful to where I don't want to say the task, but what's been entrusted to us by God. Mm-hmm. And if we don't take care of those, then we are sinning and we are not faithful to what we are called to do.
So you're seeing it as a current sin, like what you're doing now, like what you are not doing now.
Well, it's been, and it continues to perpetuate. Not, sure, I think all of us at one time or another have taken advantage of what God's given us, and we have to name that. We have to, call out our demons that are present in our lives, which we'll talk about on Sunday.
Oh,
there it is.
There it is, people. I was wondering how he was going to rope that in, but
The boomerang
That's
effect.
a skill. 'Cause it's not even annotated in your
It's not.
paperwork.
He
That's
just
right. Thank
works
you.
it in there. Anywho. Okay. So,
But I think,
I saw it as something, not, maybe you're just are or are not doing something, but when they were talking about, you're not content to be made in the image of God, and we've rebelled and disrupted creation. I felt like that was like way back, like original sin stuff. It felt like to me.
Yeah, but
Like-
don't you feel that's going on right now?
Oh yeah, I definitely
Yeah.
do, but I didn't think about it as in
So
like
yeah,
everybody has done it always from
Yeah,
the beginning.
I just think with human nature, that's not going to go away either. That's a
no,
Right.
continuous
no,
thing.
no, you're right. I mean, and that's the thing, you go all the way back to what Adam and Eve were entrusted to do, and that wasn't enough for them. They needed more and more and more. And that's really the kind of society that we're in right now. We need more, we need more. I need this, I need that, I need the other thing. And at some point, the switch is going to go off, and that's not going to be available unless we do something about it.
And I think the one line in here I thought was very good, that we treat the earth as a boundless warehouse and allow the powerful to exploit its bounties to their own ends. So that's sort of, call people accountable for what they do. But as far as the boundless warehouse, if you travel and go to a foreign country, or you go different places and you go in the grocery store, and then you come here and look at our grocery stores, we're like, you have 27 kinds of peanut butter, different
Yeah.
brands on the same
Wow.
shelf. And it there's a lot of people who are blown away by that in a positive way and a negative way. Like, why do you need that? So there's got to be sort of a balance.
Right. And that's the thing. I look at my friend from home, and he's really really doing his part in his little microcosm to make sure that he is caring for creation. Because we were there this summer, and he's lamenting about the weeds coming up through the stones and whatever. And I said, just get some Roundup, that'll be good. He goes, no, we're gonna do it this way. and I'm like, and I learned, I learned that there's a different way that's more natural to be able to deal with that, other than sitting there and pulling them out. But you could do that too.
You could. It's a little frustrating. I don't know if you have tried to ever tackle the weeds of these town sidewalks, but man, they're not fun. And at sometimes I get to the point where I'm like, somebody find me some Roundup. These have got to go.
Right.
Well, growing up in the Midwest, when we were kids, during the summer for a job, you would go walk beans or detassel. And walking beans, basically, it's just what it says. You walk down through the rows of the beans, and you pull the weeds or cut the weeds.
Right.
And so that's what teenagers did, or younger even. And, as it went, then it was you ride on the front with a sprayer. On the front of the tractor, they've got seats. And then it's, you don't need you to ride there anymore because we'll just spray it.
Right.
So there's jobs that teenagers had and stuff that don't exist. And then you went to chemicals because it's easier and cheaper.
Right.
And it's faster. So,
But then it's polluting our waters. It's doing this.
right,
It's
well,
degrading our soils,
and most people back there, have wells. There's a lot of wells. And I know
Right.
when they started testing ours, they were like, if people don't live here, don't let them drink your water. Because it's farm runoff and things like that.
Yeah.
right.
So there's got to be, a real balance to efficiency and growing better things and not poisoning yourself at the same time.
And that's where the science and the other things come in, is us to learn about that. Now, science created those other things, but also we need to look at, okay, how are we going to do this better?
And that's where you need that open-mindedness and discussion. We'll get to that. I think it's much later in there, but it talks about the church being the mediator.
Yeah.
So we won't jump too far ahead.
But I think that's the common theme in all of these social statements, is really the openness to conversation. I think that's a theme that runs throughout all of these, is being able to have that conversation with with everybody out there, and then, okay, how do we make this work? How do we be the steward instead of the dominator?
Yeah, and also responsibility. It's discussion and responsibility. that it's everybody's responsibility. It's not, that's Joe's problem.
Right.
Because we all drink the same water and breathe the same
And
air.
breathe the same.
Russ is the property manager. He needs to take care of that.
That's everybody's problem.
So this section, again, calling on sin and captivity, it for me, I picked out the part at the cause was global population and excessive consumption by industrialized nations, which we've talked about. But then it goes further to say, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
And I wrote down increased conflict over scarce resources, decline in food security, greater vulnerability to disease.
And there was even, and I'm not sure what part it was in, perhaps it's probably further down the line, where it espouses interest in equality for different genders to be able to be empowered to be that steward, because of how things.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if it is in this section or not, but it was talking, and I think Russ alluded to it even before we were on camera today, about it brings up equality, racism and gender and equity of resources. And you're like, what does that have to do with environmental, farm runoff or, nuclear waste? But, as we discussed, what did you find out, Russ?
Well, usually it's the poorer you are, the more junk you get thrown in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So, the landfill's not going to go, in the nice neighborhood. It's going to go in the poor neighborhood.
Right.
So they're the ones that are going to be affected by anything that gets dumped there, or nuclear waste, or whatever.
Mhm.
Right.
We'll throw that out west. Those people don't have to
They're-
worry about it. We'll bury it in the ground.
Right.
Well, and that happened in my hometown. I mean, we were a town in the middle of nowhere, and hazardous waste got dumped and buried and dumped and buried and dumped and buried, and then until it became a Superfund site, and then that's why I glow at night.
Oh. That's why you're always wearing short sleeves, even in the middle of winter. Who knew? Now we know.
And if you become angry, do you split your shirt?
Hulk not like.
Oh, no.
But yeah, I mean,
Yikes.
and those are the things that we really need to, be cognizant of, be on the alert for, and call out, 'cause we can't let it stand.
Yeah. And that's the job of that local
Right,
church.
right.
Churches together.
Yep.
So what else do you guys have on urgency that stuck out to you? I only have one more line, and that was like the last line. So what else you got?
I mean, I think we realize that it is, for as much as we talk or whatever, that it is urgent for us to find the solutions and for us to, have those conversations. And it's, typically not something that I ever really did, I was a good steward of the earth when I was growing up because, we did whatever, and, I still am, by going out and, when I see trash or whatever, pick it up. But that's really just scratching the surface. It's really not doing the deep dive into, what's making our water crappy, what's making, our lives less livable, and
Well-
what's keeping us from being that steward.
Right. Well, we're in a situation where this is where technology can save us, because I don't think anybody wants to get rid of plastic completely, because it's very convenient and works great for things. But can we make it in a way that's not polluting or it degrades or things like that?
Well, I just,
That way everybody can still have the stuff they want and not destroy the planet.
I mean, the thing
Or
that
not
really,
just have, but, the invention of plastic has really made such invention, so much innovation possible in the medical
right,
realm. I mean, the transmission of disease because you can take off your plastic gloves and not pass on one person's illness to the next person, or to that caretaker themselves. But again, how do you mitigate
But I think
all that waste?
I think for me especially, the most trouble that I have wrapping my head around something is the lack of care. Like when someone just tosses a burger wrapper or a bag of whatever out the window because you don't want it in your car, that really pisses me off.
It does me as well. And if you've driven with me, mostly my family, because they usually see the wrath, I actually made someone stop and turn around. We're going to go pick that. I cannot believe you just threw that out of the
Right.
car in my presence. But it's a memorable.
I did that
thing.
when I was a policeman. I was behind a car and right out the window, and then the person was incredulous that I would actually have a conversation with them about throwing trash out the window.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
I mean,
So
I'd love-
if anybody
I-
does
The
do
person
that,
needs a deeper dive.
can you explain what the thought is? Why can't you just take it home and throw it away? Or the gas station?
Right,
I don't understand why it has to go out the window.
right.
And I actually just driving into Frederick today, and all the leaves are gone, so everything's really stark, and you can see the ground on the side of the road. And we haven't had cleanup crews because of COVID out cleaning those roads up. And from Walkersville to Route 15 is disgusting.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. I do not understand people.
Right. I would just as soon come to your house with a bag of trash and dump it on the front yard. Not to yours, but
Oh, I was like,
to the
we're gonna have a
person.
problem with that.
I put other stuff on your front yard, but no, I mean to the person who's doing that, I would love to pick up a pile of trash and just, hi, how are you? How do you like it? But that's not the Christian pastoral way to handle
Not
it.
the Christian way to handle
Well,
that.
on sort of a parallel track, if you look at the issues they're having with wind turbines,
Yeah,
when they replace the blades aren't recyclable. They're in a giant stack, and they just keep stacking and stacking. So you're trying to be environmentally conscious by using wind, but you're creating massive piles of waste.
right.
So
What are
Well,
we
what
just
do they-
because something
What,
is,
what are they built of?
some kind of metal
It's
and
probably
plastic together, I think.
fiberglass
That's,
and steel, I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
it's a combination of
Yeah.
elements that they then can't
Just can't disperse.
separate and
right.
recycle.
Right, I know there was an article where there's a company that's come up with some way to grind it up, but there's sort of a startup. But, just because something is environmentally friendly, you gotta make sure that, even with electric cars, depending on what you're producing the electricity from, that could be as much pollution as the cars
Sure.
in the end. So that's where the knowledge, just
Wisdom.
because, and wisdom, comes in too.
Right.
Looking and being open to seeing all sides of the issue, because someone who's really into alternative energy and feels wind is the way to go might not realize that the mechanism to harness that energy is then
Right.
just as
Sure.
contaminating as whatever else the alternative is.
Yep.
All right. So I like the way the statements are laid out. I don't know if anybody else noticed that, but it's like, here's the spiritual foundation of it. Here's the conviction of, urgency, and you feel kind of crappy. And then the third section is the hope. The gift of hope. Everybody needs a little gift of hope. My first thing is in B. So what do you guys have in section A, a gift of hope? Anything? They bring Luther into it a little bit.
Yeah, I did like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, excuse me, the last sentence there, it says in the first paragraph, by the cross and resurrection of Jesus Christ, God frees us from our sin and captivity and empowers us to be loving servants to creation.
Mm-hmm.
So really, I mean, for everything in our lives, the cross is the life-giving salvation of
As
everything.
I've told kids before, Jesus is always the answer.
Jesus is always the
Yeah,
answer.
so the last one where we got slapped with the stick,
Mhm.
that it's our sin that's the problem. Well, here's your carrot.
Yeah,
You're
here,
forgiven.
Here's forgiveness.
right. We're,
The
we're,
forgiveness
But
carrot.
they're the forgiveness and, wait, is it a but or an and? Forgiveness and do something, or forgiveness but now you have to do something?
no,
Forgiveness
it's
and.
not.
Not?
There's it's not a have to do something. It's how the Holy Spirit works within your heart for you to want to do something.
Right. I agree.
Okay, well, good.
Check. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, we are at,
Are we at time?
yeah, we're at 12:40.
Okay, let's.
So I don't
So
know
much
if
for
we-
that blowing through this.
So
Yeah,
we're
we
not,
didn't.
we're gonna, but ending on hope is always good.
But I think we can talk more about hope
Yeah.
next
we'll
week.
Pick up,
Yeah, we'll
start with
pick up on hope.
and then go into justice next week, yeah?
Yep.
All right.
Sounds like a plan.
So your homework is to, read it and
Read
let us
it
know
and-
what you think.
And send us some questions. I mean, we
Yeah.
really want to be engaging. And again, if there are folks who want to join us in person, we have that availability. So, we're doing things safely. If we know you're coming, there are different things that will be done, but we welcome you to join us.
RSVP.
Yep, RSVP. But send us some questions. Read up and let us know what you're thinking. Or if you have comments, we can address the comments and maintain your anonymity if that's what you want.
And so lots of reading. You're preparing for the
Annual
congregational
meeting, yep.
meeting on Sunday, and the rest of Caring for Creation next Thursday.
Next Thursday. That's
Yep.
right. Cool beans.
Cool beans. We're out.
All right, see you.